In this instruction video, we're going to work on inline CSS. We're going to complete this tutorial here. So this is what we want to create. The first thing you're going to want to do is go into your HTML folder, which mine is right here. And you're going to want to make a new folder inside of there, and we're going to call this one Challenge 3, just like that. And then after you do that, the next thing you want to do is there's some files that you need to download. They're right here in this required pics folder. So I'm going to click on that. There's two images here. I'm going to download this one, and I'm also going to download this swirly ping as well. When you download those, they show up in your downloads. You've got to copy those or move them. I've just copied mine. I'm going to put them into my Challenge 3 folder, just like that. So now I've just put these two images, basketball.jpg and swirly.ping, into my folder. Now I'm going to open up brackets. Once I have brackets open, the next thing I want to do is make a new file. So File, New, and I'm going to go File, Save to save this, and I'm going to save it to my HTML folder and inside of Challenge 3, and I'll call it challenge3.html. Now again, the first thing we want to start with is the HTML tag. I'm going to close that. The next thing is we want a head tag, closing head tag. The next thing we want is a body tag. So we always want to start with these same tags. Now inside the head tag, we're going to add a title tag with a closing title. And let's look at the assignment sheet and see what they want the title to be. So the HTML title is going to be Inline CSS. So I'll copy that, jump back over to brackets, and I will paste that there and save this. And now inside my folder, I will open up Challenge 3, and there it is. You can see it says Inline CSS is my page title there. Now let's look at the assignment sheet. So now we want to use a Google font and have the background color of the body tag set to Azure. So the Google font I want to use is Open Sans. So now I'm going to click this Open Sans link here. This opens up here just like this. And then we can essentially use this font inside of our website. So this is a different font. It's not installed on your computer. So we can use it anywhere we want on the website. And you can't normally use any font unless it's installed on that person's computer. But Google Fonts lets you have a way around that. So I'm going to click the Get Font button. And here is my font, Open Sans, just like that. And then I'm going to say Get Embed Code. And now here is the embed code right there. I'll click the Copy Code button. It says put this in the head of your HTML document. So now I'll jump back over to brackets, and inside the head I'm going to paste that in there just like that. So now this is just allowing us to use the font Open Sans. So now let's jump back to our assignment sheet, and we can see that it wants the font on the body to be Open Sans so that everything is Open Sans. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to key in here H1, and I'll say Inline CSS Styles is the H1 title. You can see that there. And if I refresh this, you'll see that's in Times New Roman because we haven't changed the default font on the body tag. So now if I go back over to my Open Sans embed, you can see it'll show you right down here. It shows you how to add Open Sans to your website. So you can say font-family Open Sans, just like that. So I'll copy that line of code there. And now let's go back to here, and then I'll say style equals, and I'll paste that declaration in there. And this is called a font stack. So it says font family will be Open Sans. If Open Sans doesn't exist, it will be a sans serif font, or a font with no tick marks. And you notice that we use a quote here, so these have to be inside of a single quote instead. Otherwise it's closing the quote, so I'll change that to a single quote just like that. So now if I jump back here and refresh this, you can see that font family changes to Open Sans. So now I will jump back here, and we want to change the background color as well. So we'll do background dash color, and I'll do Azure. It's a good one. Let's jump back here, and now you can see it's like a light blue background color. And now we know we want to center this inline CSS styles. So if I jump back here, let's see if we can see this. So we want to center it, we want to make it italic, and we want to make it 55 pixels. So here I will say style equals, and I will do font dash size 55 px and text dash align and center. So now if I refresh this, you can see it's 55 pixels, it's centered, and we also want to make it italic. So we'll do font dash style and italic. Save that, refresh that. Now that's 55 pixels, centered and italic. Now this challenge is called Inline CSS because every time you put the word style equals, this is Inline CSS. So everything inside those equal signs right there, inside those quotation marks, is inline CSS. So it is in line with the tag it is impacting. And we'll get into internal and external CSS styles sometime soon. But font family, just like this is inline CSS. And again, just to review, this was a font stack. So we have font family, and it's open sans if that exists. And if that doesn't exist, it would be the next available sans serif font. That's called a font stack. And you can specify as many fonts as you want there. Okay, so now we've got our title there. Now we want to have an HR, or a horizontal rule, and that's above this paragraph and below. Okay, so now let's add in an HR here. And notice that the HR has no closing tag. And you notice by default the HR is like this gray color. So instead of that gray color, we want it to be cadet blue here. So if I were to change the background color, so I'll say style equals background color, and we'll do cadet blue. If I were to refresh this, you can't really see that. You can't see that blue color. It's because there's a border on the outside of this HR by default. So let's get rid of that border. So here I'll say border 0. So now that's a CSS style of border. So that's property, colon, value, semicolon. So now we've just turned the border off, and now there is no border on that. So it disappears. So let's set a height. So we'll say height 2 pixels like that. And now we have a blue line. So we've set a height of 2 pixels, we've turned the border off and made the background color cadet blue. Now we also want this to only be 800 pixels wide. So let's do this, let's say width, and we'll do 800 pixels. So if I refresh that, it's only 800 pixels wide. Now we're going to copy this, and I will paste it below just like that. So now we have 2 lines like this, and want to put a paragraph in between there. Now the paragraph you can see right here as a margin on top of 20 pixels, a margin on bottom of 20, and then a right and left margin of auto, and a width of 800 pixels. So let's get a paragraph of Greek text here. So I just went to that link. I'm going to copy this Greek text and go back here, and in between these two, I'll put a P tag. I'll paste that paragraph and save this. And now if I refresh this, there's my paragraph there. Now you can see it goes all the way left to right. We don't want it to go all the way left to right. We only want it to be 800 pixels wide. So I'll say style equals, and I'll do width 800 pixels. Refresh that. Now you can see that paragraph is 800 pixels. The issue is it's not centered. So we want this to be centered. Now you might think we could just say text-align center, like so, but that will actually center the text within that paragraph. So that's not really what we want to do. Instead, we want to set some margins on this. So I'm going to say margin-top, and we'll do 20 pixels. And I'll do margin-bottom of 20 pixels. And this will move it away from that line. So we just added some margin there and some margin there. But we also want to add margin on the left and the right. So now we could specify margin dash left, and we could do 300 pixels or some number, and that's too much, as you can see. Maybe try 250, and that's not quite, that needs to go less. We'll do 220, save that, refresh that. That's pretty close. However, you don't want to do that, because if our screen stretches like this or condenses, you can see it just always has a consistent margin on the left. So instead, you want to say margin dash left, and we'll do auto, and margin dash right is auto. So now it will always have equal margins on the left and right, no matter how big that is. Okay. Now let's jump back to the assignment sheet. The next thing is we've got a swirly image right there. Okay. So let's add this image into a p tag. And it's called swirly.ping. So let's go down below this, and we will do img source, and we'll do swirly like this, and I'll say alt text. This is for accessibility. Swirly image, and you can add a title if you want. I'm not going to. Again, this tag has no closing tag associated with it. If I refresh this, you can see there's my picture. Now I want this to be centered, so let's put it into a p tag, just like that, and a closing p tag at the end. And then let's say style equals, and let's say width 800 pixels to save that. So now we've got set that to 800, and let's do margin dash left auto and margin dash right auto. So now that's centered, except the image is not 800 pixels, so let's add that into the image. So again, we'll do style equals width 800 pixels, save that, and now that's exactly centered. And again, this will move with that text perfectly. So let's see what's next. So now we've got an H2 that's centered and says the word booyah. Okay. So we've got these settings on the H2. Okay, so now let's add this H2. As you can see, it says H2 tag centered booyah, and then it has this these settings on it. Okay, so let's jump back over to brackets, and let's do an H2. And let's look and see what it says again. H2 tag centered booyah. So we'll do H2 tag centered booyah like that. If I save that, jump back over here, I can refresh that, and there you can see it's right there. But now we want to set a background color and center it and do a few other things. So let's do that. So we'll say style equals, and we'll do background dash color. And this time we're going to do these settings, and it's cadet blue, it's centered, and it's got a padding of 20 pixels. So we'll do background color is cadet blue like that. Save that, refresh that. And now you can see it's got a nice background color, but we want to add some padding so it moves away from the edge a little bit. So I'm going to say padding 20 pixels, which adds 20 pixels of padding to the top, bottom, left, and right. Now let's set the width to be 800. Okay, it's 800 pixels. Now let's center it. So we'll do, again, margin dash left auto and margin dash right auto. Now you'll notice that it's a little bit too wide, and that's because the padding gets added to the width of the overall element. So if we want this to be lined up, instead of saying width 800 pixels, we need to subtract the padding we have on the left and right, which is 20 pixels on the left, 20 pixels on the right. So the width instead we'll set to 760 pixels. That's 800 minus 40, and it does that perfectly. Now the next thing, let's look at our assignment sheet, and we've got a basketball picture. And that's going to go in a paragraph tag, same width, and in the image links to ESPN and opens inside of a new window. Okay, so now let's go ahead and add another paragraph tag. And then we'll do an image and we'll do source. And this time it's going to be basketball, just like that. And I can refresh that and you can see there's my basketball picture. You can see it's a little bit too large. So again, let's set the style equals and we'll do width 800 pixels. Refresh that, now it's 800 pixels. Now let us change the width of the paragraph, 800 pixels on the width of the paragraph, and let's give it a margin dash left of auto and a margin dash right of auto. And now that will center that in that area. Also, this H2 needs to be centered. So let's say text dash align center. That's centered. That picture looks good. And now the next thing we want to do is add another line, a cadet blue line down there. So I'm just going to go get this HR I did previously. And I'm going to put this down here like that. And now that line shows up below my image. And now I want a paragraph tag that says created by Patrick Sasser, the date, and then my email address as well. And also this needs a link to ESPN. So we'll do that down here. So below the HR, we'll do a P tag. And we'll say created by Patrick Sasser. And then if we want this single spaced, we need to add in a BR. And then it's supposed to say email me, or it's supposed to say created on. So now we'll put today's date. Created on, and it's January 23rd, 2024. Another BR, and then we can say email me at, and I'll put my email address, Patrick_Sasser at dpsk12.net. Let's copy that email. Let's wrap this inside of an A tag, and we'll do mail to : paste that email address, end our quote, and then we can close our A tag after my email, like so. And now we've got that inside of there like this. Now let's set the width of this paragraph to be 800 pixels again. So we'll say style equals width 800 pixels, and we'll give it a margin dash left of auto and a margin dash right of auto. So now if I save that and jump back here and refresh, you can see it's 800 pixels, but we want this to be centered in this space. So we'll give it a text dash align of center. And now that is perfectly centered, just like that. So that looks pretty good. The only last thing to do is make this right here go to ESPN when you click it. So I'll go to ESPN. I'll copy this link, close that. Let's jump back to here. Let's find our image, which is right there. And I'll say A, href, and then I'll paste that link to ESPN like so. And then I will put my closing A tag after the image, which is right there. So now if I refresh this, this will go to ESPN, but it goes in the same window. So we want to make sure this opens in a new window. So I'll say target is _ blank like so. Now when I click this, it opens inside of a new window. And because of all that margin auto stuff that we did, you'll notice that we can resize this effectively and it will always be centered. You might notice a couple issues up top here with these HRs, or with this inline CSS up here. We can adjust those if we'd like. We can set on this H1 that we created, we could say width is 800 pixels, and then we could say margin dash left is auto and margin dash right is auto. Save that, refresh that, and now this will stay centered and not move. And so this is exactly how you do this entire challenge. Now just to review, this was an inline CSS challenge. So everything we typed inside of here, this is all CSS. When you see the word style equals in a quote, that's all CSS. And it always follows the same format. Property, : value, semicolon. property colon value semicolon. Property colon value semicolon. And that completes challenge 3.